Hi everyone, it's Trinity, and in today's video we're going to be learning about the Aufbau principle. So what is the Aufbau principle? Well, the Aufbau principle says that electrons fill lower energy orbitals before they fill higher energy orbitals. So to understand the Aufbau principle, we need to have an understanding of orbitals. You guys should already be pretty familiar with them from your previous lessons, and you should also be familiar with this diagram that was first introduced in one of Angela's videos. As a quick review, this diagram shows that every element on the periodic table can be classified into the S block, the D block, the P block, or the F block, and it also shows how we tend to label and number our orbitals. If you're unfamiliar with this material, I suggest going back and rewatching Angela's video before continuing this one. So, even if you're familiar with these orbitals, you're still not sure you still haven't been taught how to identify low energy orbitals and high energy orbitals. And the easiest way to do so on a periodic table is to follow this rule. If you go from left to right, the first orbital you encounter will be lower in energy. So let's use an example. So starting at the top left, the first orbital you encounter is 1s, which means 1s is the lowest energy orbital. And if you go from left to right, you can see that the next orbital you meet is 2s, so that's the second lowest energy orbital. And then 2p is the next lowest energy orbital, and then 3s, and then 3p, and then 4s, then 3d, then 4p, and so on. And based on the Aufbau principle, lower energy orbitals are filled first, which means 1s is filled first, then 2s, then 2p, and so on and so forth. And 5f, which is the highest energy orbital, will be filled last. So sometimes you'll be asked to rank the energy levels of orbitals without a periodic table. And when that happens, you might want to, you need to draw this diagram. And to draw the diagram, first list all of the s orbitals on the left side. And the s orbitals go from 1 to 7. Then you list all of the p orbitals, which go from 2 to 6. Then you list all the d orbitals, which go from 3 to 5. Then you list all of the f orbitals, which go from 4 to 5. And once you've listed all of the orbitals, then you can connect all the orbitals with diagonal lines like this. And once again, the first orbital you meet is the lowest energy orbital. So 1s is the lowest, then 2s, then 2p, then 3s, then 3d, then 4p, then 5s, and so on. If you want, you can pause this video and check to see if the filling order is the same between this diagram and the periodic table, and you'll see that they are. So now that we understand what the Aufbau principle is, let's incorporate it into our energy diagram to create a more accurate energy diagram that will be helpful for us in the future. So this is the current energy diagram that you guys should be familiar with. It was first introduced in a video with Jay. And for this energy diagram, we can see that we are ranking the energies of shells. However, now you should know that shells can be broken down into subshells. For example, the first shell is made up of the 1s subshell. So let's make our diagram more accurate and replace n equals 1 with 1s. And the second shell is made up of the 2s subshell and the 2p subshell. And remember, when going from left to right, the first one you meet is lower in energy, so 2s is lower in energy than 2p. And we can show this on our energy diagram as well. Have 2s be slightly lower in energy than 2p. Now let's do the third shell. So the third shell is made up of the 3s, the 3p, and the 3d subshells. And once again, following the left to right rule, 3s is the lowest, followed by 2p, and 3d is the highest. And we can show that on our energy diagram. However, as we were going through our energy diagram, you should have noticed that between 3p and 3d is the 4s subshell, and the same will hold true in our energy diagram. So the 4s subshell actually goes between the 3d and 3p subshell. So now we're almost done with our new energy diagram. We just have to incorporate one more thing. In your earlier lessons, when you were first introduced to s, p, d, and f orbitals, you should remember that there are different numbers of each type of orbital. So you should remember that there is one type of s orbital, 3 types of p orbitals, and 5 types of d orbitals. So let's incorporate that information into our diagram. So there's only one type of s orbital, so it's okay if our 1s orbitals are symbolized by just one line. There are 3 types of p orbitals, so let's adjust our p orbitals to be made up of 3 lines to represent each type of p orbital. And we also want to adjust our 3p to lines. And there are 5d orbitals, which means we need to adjust our 3d line to incorporate 5 orbitals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a little messy, but this is what a more accurate energy diagram would look like according to the Aufbau principle. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching.